Hi guys. So we're from Shatin College, and so our operation is called Review, Redesign, and Recycle, which is slightly cliche, but really doesn't really matter because what we're trying to promote is improved recycling. So who are we? So we're a group of Year 12 students. It's not just us. It's actually a group of around 10 people. Sorry? 14 people. Sorry. And our goal is to essentially revamp the current recycling program as we think it's inefficient and really ineffective. A little bit of information about the background of our school in terms of recycling. Currently, we only have 7 sets of proper recycling bins, and even even if we do have these recycling bins, they aren't really effective because no one really uses them due to a lack of good design and accessibility. And we have previously tried to improve the recycling system through the EAG, which is the Environmental Action Group. But such attempts have failed, unfortunately, due to some reasons that we'll further explain in further slides.
Like every school, we have a lack of awareness. In our school, there are recycle bins. However, they are oddly placed within the school, which make it inconvenient for the students, thus making them use normal trash cans instead of recycling bins. We also have a lack of proper information. As you can see, people can mistake proper wrappers as plastic and metal, so they throw in the wrong compartment. For example, we sell a lot of juice box, and most of the students think it's paper, so they put in the recycling bin for paper when you're not supposed to. There's also a lack of motivation because not many of the students are, like I said, aware of the problems. And the bin design is not suitable, however, we'll go that in later slides. And also, as mentioned, the location of the bins are pretty inconvenient.
Our school already has a group in place that's in charge of environmental conservation. We call them the Environmental Council. However, while their intentions are good, their project on recycling was rather lacking in terms of research and foresight. Here's an example of one of the recycling bins. It's the small white one between the 2 blue bins. As you can see, people don't really bother with a small bin, one, because it's not as obvious. It's a very small, tiny white bin that blends well with the background. And also next to it, you have 2 larger, fully functional general waste bins. Secondly, you can see it's not very visually appealing. It's quite dirty and it's not very nice to use, frankly. Although we do have some much larger functional bins, you can see there, it's also more visually appealing. One of the biggest issues with this is they're mounted on very strong spring hinges. In this picture to the right, you can see that people can't really push it through. And yes, although it's not the right type of trash, people really have serious issues pushing it through. Many of our lower years have issues trying to open the flaps.
However, while the EAG's plan didn't really work out, we did learn several things from their project. And we learned that people will recycle if convenient because as we've seen from the photo before, there were some papers in the paper recycling bin. However, it wasn't that many because the bin itself couldn't hold as much paper. And also, a lot of time we saw that people didn't really know what they were supposed to recycle and what wasn't actually recyclable. Because, for example, if you have plastic-coated paper, that's not actually recyclable. But a lot of people still put those things in the paper recycling bins. And another thing we learned from that project is that the main reason why they failed was because the cleaners stopped emptying the bins after around 2 weeks. So this project was functional for 2 weeks and then it just stopped because the cleaners had no incentive to add further work onto their everyday cleaning routine. And so they stopped emptying the bins, and once nobody started emptying the bins, they got filled up, dirty, and just basically abandoned. So learning from this and the other bins that I think our government provided at our school, which are basically, they're not very nice to use. They're quite dirty, as you can see from the mold everywhere, because nobody ever cleans them. Their hinges are too strong, so people can't push things in properly and are reduced to kind of slipping it in through the hinge and the gap so that it'll just stay in. And so what our project is about is basically redesigning the entire bin itself. And we're taking a kind of DT approach to it by first going through the design specifications of a good bin. And we've identified that the main things we need to do is improve the lid design. It has to be easier to use. And basically we think that from other dirty. And also the bins themselves have to be easier to clean because that was a key factor in why the project failed because the bins got moldy and nobody wanted to touch them anymore. So that's one thing we need to work on. And also we need a drainage system for drink containers because the people at our school do not rinse their plastic bottles or whatever before they throw them in the bins. So we need a system in place where we can easily clean the plastic before we send it to the recycling center. And also we need to teach people what can and what cannot be recycled. And that probably take the form of more informative labeling, showing them exactly what is recyclable in our school. And so what we're going to do for after we design the bins and made them is that we're going to measure the current recycling rate at our school through a survey. And we're planning to basically just have someone stand at every recycling bin at our school at every break for a whole week and just measure the number of people who recycle every break. And we're focusing on number of people and not the quantity of plastic because we think that what's important is that people recycle and not how much they recycle. And after the bins are made, we're going to couple it with an awareness campaign on the recycling do's and don'ts first so that people know how to use the bins before we implement them. And then once we've implemented them, we're going to redo our whole survey and see whether it's effective or not.
As we mentioned, we have roughly 14 people in our group. So a small section of our group went to IKEA to research on their current bin designs because they are a furniture store. We are pretty close to them. So we went on an ongoing field trip to research on their recycling bin styles. However, as we went through, we realized that not all the bins match our current needs, as our school goes from year 7 to 13, which is roughly a range from 11 to 18-year-olds. So they all come in different heights. So we need one which fitted for everyone. So we concluded that we couldn't really use an existing design, that we have to design one ourselves. So we might implement this through the inter-house competitions we will implement in the future.
Because we're still mostly in the project planning phase, we're currently still trying to check with other groups like the government and our own school PTAs for funding and see what other groups can provide us with help.
And also, we need to talk to our teachers about trying to incorporate this into the inter-house kind of culture at our school, because our school has 4 houses, and a lot of competitions exist between them that people actually somewhat care about with house spirit. And so we're trying to incorporate into perhaps our Green Week, which is an event at our school where we do environmentally themed lessons for a whole week, and perhaps incorporate into the DT lessons where the children themselves can submit designs for recycling bins that they think would be useful. And we're also going to promote recycling and oceanic conservation with workshops at our affiliated junior school, which is right across from our school. And that is basically what our project is about. Thank you.
Wait, we have video. Oh wait, sorry, we're not quite done yet. So aside from just recycling, this is just a small part of our oceanic conservation team. And so we made a promotional video, which we played in a school assembly. And so we'd like to show it to you. Just, you know,